Our story begins 3 years ago when my wife Sarah, our daughter Lily, and I finally found our dream home. After searching for nearly 18 months, we discovered a single-story ranch house in Oakwood Estates that could be modified to accommodate Lily's mobility needs. Lily was born with a rare form of muscular dystrophy that affects her mobility and requires daily medication to manage her symptoms. Despite these challenges, she has always maintained an incredible spirit and determination that inspires everyone around her. The house required significant modifications to be fully accessible, but the previous owners had already installed wider doorways and a zero-step entry, which was a promising start. We worked with contractors to add handrails, a wheelchair ramp for the front entrance, and a specially designed bathroom with safety features. These modifications transformed the house into a place where Lily could navigate independently, giving her the dignity and freedom every 16-year-old deserves. Our neighbors initially welcomed us warmly. The families on either side brought over welcome baskets and offered to help us unpack. Mr. Jenkins across the street even volunteered his construction expertise when we installed the ramp. For the first 6 months, Oakwood Estates felt like the supportive community we had always hoped to find. Lily was thriving in her new school, making friends who would visit our accessible home without the awkwardness she had sometimes experienced in the past. Everything changed when the annual HOA election brought in new leadership. Patricia Winters, whom everyone referred to simply as Karen behind her back, ran unopposed for HOA president on a platform of neighborhood preservation and property value protection. She had a reputation for rigid rule enforcement, but we had no idea how significantly her election would impact our lives. The first citation arrived on a Tuesday morning, tucked inside an official-looking envelope. Front yard landscaping does not meet community standards. Please replace non-conforming plants within 14 days. I was confused as we had simply maintained the drought-resistant landscaping installed by the previous owners, which several other houses on our street also featured. When I attended the next HOA meeting to clarify the violation, Karen responded with rehearsed politeness that barely concealed her condescension. The previous board may have been lax in enforcement, but under my leadership, we will be returning to the standards that make Oakwood Estates desirable. Her gaze lingered uncomfortably on me as she emphasized the word desirable. We complied with the landscaping request, though it cost us nearly $800. Then came citations about our garbage bins being visible from the street, though we placed them exactly where our neighbors did. Then our mailbox was suddenly the wrong shade of black. Each compliance cost us time and money. Sarah noticed it first. "Have you realized that no one else on our street has received these notices?" she asked one evening as we reviewed yet another citation. She was right. Our neighbors confirmed they had not received any violation notices despite having similar landscaping, mailboxes, and garbage bin placement. A pattern was emerging, one that seemed specifically focused on our family. Our neighbor Alina whispered a warning at the community pool one Saturday. "Be careful with Karen. When the Rodriguezes installed solar panels last year, she made their lives miserable until they moved. She does not like anything that makes homes look different from her vision of perfect." Alina glanced around nervously before adding, "And she has been taking pictures of your house. I have seen her parked across the street with her camera." That night, Sarah and I sat on our patio, watching Lily read in her wheelchair under the oak tree in our backyard. The tension that had been building since Karen's election hung in the air between us. "This is about the accessibility modifications, is not it?" Sarah finally said. I nodded, a knot forming in my stomach as I realized our perfect home was about to become a battleground. The next month brought a dramatic escalation in HOA demands. An official letter arrived stating that our wheelchair ramp violated architectural guidelines. All external modifications must maintain the aesthetic cohesiveness of the neighborhood, the letter stated in cold, bureaucratic language. The current ramp extending from your front entrance is not approved and must be removed within 30 days or fines will be assessed. I immediately called the HOA management company to explain that the ramp was a necessary accommodation for Lily. The representative sounded sympathetic, but insisted that we should have submitted proper documentation and received approval before installation, despite the fact that the ramp had been in place since we moved in. When I pointed out that the Americans with Disabilities Act protected reasonable modifications for disabled residents, the representative suggested I attend the next board meeting to discuss the issue. Sarah and I spent the next week gathering medical documentation and researching disability accommodation laws to prepare our case. The night of the meeting arrived, and the community room at the clubhouse was unusually full. Karen sat at the center of the board table, a folder neatly positioned in front of her. When our agenda item came up, she smiled thinly and gestured for me to speak. I explained Lily's condition and our legal right to make necessary modifications to our home. Several neighbors nodded in agreement as I spoke. "Thank you for your presentation, Mr. Mitchell," Karen responded when I finished. "However, I would like to share some concerns about these unauthorized modifications." She opened her folder and connected her laptop to the projector. What appeared on the screen made my blood run cold. There were dozens of photographs of our home, close-ups of the wheelchair ramp, Lily's lift equipment by the pool, the specialized handles we had installed on the exterior doors. Most disturbing were several photos of Lily herself, using these accommodations. Some appeared to have been taken with a telephoto lens, showing Lily in what we had assumed were private moments in our own home. As you can see, Karen continued, clicking through the images, these modifications create significant visual disruptions to the architectural harmony of our community. She paused on a photo of Lily's medical equipment that was temporarily stored on our enclosed back patio. This medical clutter is visible from the golf course and community walking path, creating an unsightly view that affects all residents. The room fell silent. Even Karen's usual supporters looked uncomfortable with the invasion of privacy the photos represented. I stood up, struggling to control my anger. Those photos of our daughter were taken without permission. She is a minor. This is not just an HOA violation. This is harassment. Karen waved her hand dismissively. These were taken from public areas, the street, the walking path, the golf course. There is no expectation of privacy. She turned to address the room. Property values affect everyone in this community. Special accommodations may be necessary, but they should be discreet and minimally visible. Several neighbors spoke up in our defense, including Elena and Mr. Jenkins. The meeting devolved into heated exchanges, with Karen eventually calling for order and moving to the next agenda item without resolution. As we prepared to leave, a board member named David approached us quietly. "Check your CCRs carefully. She is overreaching her authority." He slipped us his card with his personal number written on the back. The following week, we received notices that our violations had escalated to the maximum fine level, $100 per day for each violation. But what disturbed us more was finding a folder that had been accidentally included with the violation notice. It contained printed photos of our home with handwritten notes in Karen's distinctive handwriting. "Property value diminishing eyesores." One note read next to an image of Lily's ramp. Another referred to our home as the handicapped house bringing down the neighborhood. The most chilling note simply stated, "Need to restore neighborhood standards. They must comply or leave." That evening, Sarah and I discussed our options while Lily was at a school event. "This is discrimination, plain and simple," Sarah said, her voice breaking. "We cannot remove the things our daughter needs to live independently." "We will not," I assured her. "We have the law on our side." But as I said those words, I wondered if legal protection would be enough against someone who seemed willing to cross ethical and potentially legal boundaries in her crusade against our family. The following day, I discovered security camera footage from our doorbell camera showing Corinne walking onto our property while we were away, examining the wheelchair ramp up close and taking measurements. This was no longer just about HOA rules. This was targeted harassment against our disabled daughter. The certified letter arrived on a Tuesday morning. The envelope bore the official HOA logo, an urgent legal notice, stamped in bold red letters across the front. Inside was a formal notice informing us that the HOA board had voted to initiate legal proceedings if we did not remove all unauthorized exterior modifications within 2 weeks. The potential penalties included not only daily fines, but also the possibility of a lien against our property. The timing could not have been worse. Lily had just returned home from 3 days in the hospital following a serious infection that had temporarily worsened her symptoms. Her doctor had prescribed additional respiratory therapy equipment that needed to be kept near her bed, which was in the front bedroom of our home. The equipment was bulky and occasionally visible through the window despite our best efforts to position it discreetly. "We cannot remove her ramp. She cannot even get into the house without it right now," Sarah said, her voice tight with stress as she read through the legal notice. Lily was resting in her room, exhausted from the hospital stay and unaware of the latest development in our ongoing battle with the HOA. "I know," I replied, running my hands through my hair. "This has gone beyond unreasonable. I am going to call David from the board and see if he can help us appeal this decision." David agreed to meet us for coffee that afternoon. When he arrived, his expression was grave. "Corinne called an emergency board meeting yesterday when you were still at the hospital with Lily. Only 3 board members could attend on such short notice, all of them Corinne's close friends. They pushed through a new zero-tolerance policy for architectural violations." "Is that even legal?" Sarah asked. David shook his head. "The meeting did not have proper quorum according to our bylaws, and significant policy changes typically require notification to all homeowners. Several of us on the board are questioning the validity of the vote, but Corinne is moving forward with enforcement anyway." We decided to attend the next regular board meeting scheduled for that Friday to formally contest the decision. I contacted a lawyer specializing in housing discrimination, who agreed to review our case and attend the meeting with us. We arranged for Lily's favorite nurse, Megan, to stay with her during the meeting. The board meeting room was packed when we arrived. Corinne sat at the center of the table, a stack of papers neatly arranged before her. Our lawyer, Ms. Rodriguez, took notes as the meeting proceeded through routine business. When our appeal was finally addressed, I presented our case calmly, explaining Lily's medical needs and the legal protections afforded under the Fair Housing Act and Americans with Disabilities Act. Several neighbors spoke in our support, including elderly residents who pointed out that accessible features would benefit many community members as they aged. The atmosphere seemed to be shifting in our favor until Corinne stood to respond. "While we sympathize with medical challenges," she began, her voice coldly professional, "this community was designed as a premium residential development with specific aesthetic standards. Those who require extensive medical accommodations might be better served in communities specifically designed for those needs." A murmur ran through the crowd. Even some of Corinne's supporters looked uncomfortable. Our lawyer interjected. My client has the legal right to reasonable accommodations for his daughter's disability. The modifications in question are necessary for her to access and use her home. Corinne's expression hardened. The issue is not the necessity but the execution. There are ways to incorporate needed modifications without creating eyesores that affect property values. She pulled out a folder of photos. For instance, this medical equipment is clearly visible from the street, and this ramp could have been designed to be less obtrusive. That equipment was temporary following her hospitalization, I explained, struggling to maintain my composure. And the ramp design was approved by her physical therapist for safety reasons. Corinne continued as if I had not spoken. Furthermore, studies show that homes with visible medical equipment and accessibility modifications sell for significantly less than comparable properties. Each home that sells below market value affects all our property values. The room fell silent as Corinne delivered her final argument. The harsh reality is that visible disabilities and medical needs lower community standards and values. While we cannot discriminate against residents with special needs, we can and should enforce standards that maintain our neighborhood's desirability and investment value. Several gasps echoed through the room. Even Corinne's closest allies on the board looked stunned by the explicitly discriminatory statement. Our lawyer was furiously writing notes, a small smile playing at the corners of her mouth. Corinne had just handed us irrefutable evidence of discrimination. Board member David immediately objected. That statement directly contradicts our responsibilities under federal housing law. Other board members nodded in agreement. Corinne seemed to realize her mistake and attempted to backpedal. I simply meant that visible modifications, not the residents themselves, can affect property aesthetics. But the damage was done. The meeting erupted into heated arguments. Several longtime residents stood up to leave in disgust. Through the chaos, I locked eyes with Corinne and saw something disturbing. Not embarrassment at her faux pas, but cold, calculated anger directed squarely at our family. The meeting was adjourned without resolution, but the board agreed to postpone any legal action until they could consult with the HOA's attorney about disability accommodation requirements. As we left the building, our lawyer was optimistic. She just gave us exactly what we need to file a housing discrimination complaint, Ms. Rodriguez explained. That night, as Sarah and I checked on Lily before going to bed, I felt a growing sense of unease. Corinne's expression had contained something beyond the usual bureaucratic stubbornness. There had been personal malice there. Something told me this conflict was far from over, and I feared it would get worse before it got better. "Do you think we should consider moving?" Sarah whispered as we watched Lily sleeping peacefully. I shook my head. This is our home. Lily is happy here. We have rights, and we are not going to be bullied out of our home because someone values property aesthetics over human dignity. Little did I know that Corinne was already planning her next move, one that would cross the line from harassment into something far more sinister. Wednesday mornings were always structured around Lily's physical therapy appointments. Her specialized treatment center was located about 40 minutes away, and her sessions were critical for maintaining her muscle function and preventing further deterioration. We had arranged reliable transportation through a medical transport service that accommodated her wheelchair and medical needs. At 7:15 that morning, as Lily was finishing her breakfast and medication routine, my phone rang. It was the transport service explaining that their vehicle had been involved in a minor accident, and they had no alternative transportation available. They apologized profusely, but could not provide service that day. This is her evaluation appointment, I explained anxiously to the dispatcher. She has been waiting 3 months to see this specialist. Is there any other service you can recommend on short notice? The dispatcher provided a couple of alternatives, but when I called, neither had wheelchair-accessible vehicles available on such short notice. Sarah had an important presentation at work that she could not reschedule, and I was in the middle of a critical project deadline. We were frantically discussing options when our doorbell rang. I opened the door to find Karen standing on our porch, her usual perfectly composed self in a tailored blazer and pearls. This was the first time she had come to our door since the contentious board meeting the previous week. "Good morning," she said with a smile that did not reach her eyes. "I could not help but overhear your conversation in the driveway about transportation issues. I wanted to offer my assistance." I was immediately suspicious. "How did you hear about our transportation problem?" "I was walking by and heard you on the phone discussing it rather loudly," she replied smoothly. "I know we have had our differences, but I thought perhaps this could be an opportunity to start fresh. I have a comfortable SUV with plenty of room for Lily's portable wheelchair. I would be happy to drive her to her appointment." I hesitated, every instinct telling me not to trust her. But when I glanced back at Lily at the kitchen table, looking anxious about potentially missing her important evaluation, I found myself reconsidering. "That is very kind of you, but we can manage," I said firmly. Corinne nodded, appearing understanding. "Of course, I just thought it might help. The specialist center off Highway 16, correct? I volunteer at the hospital next door occasionally. It would not be out of my way at all." She began to walk away, then turned back. "But I understand your hesitation given our recent disagreements. I hope Lily does not miss her evaluation because of our issues." The subtle manipulation worked its way into my thoughts. What if we could not find another solution in time? The evaluation was critical for Lily's treatment plan, and rescheduling could take months. Sarah joined me at the door, having overheard the conversation. "What did Corinne want?" she asked warily. I explained Corinne's offer as we continued calling other transport services without success. Time was running short, and Lily's anxiety was visibly increasing as she watched us struggle to find a solution. "I do not trust her," Sarah whispered, "but this appointment is crucial and we are running out of options." We discussed the situation quietly while Lily prepared her things. "Maybe this is her way of making amends," Sarah suggested, though her tone made it clear she did not quite believe it either. After exhausting all other possibilities and with the appointment time approaching, we reluctantly decided to accept Corinne's offer. I called her, and she arrived within minutes, her SUV idling in our driveway. I helped Lily into the passenger seat while Sarah loaded her portable wheelchair into the back. "Her medication is in this bag," Sarah explained, handing a small insulated case to Corinne. "She needs to take the next dose at noon after her appointment. The therapy center knows her routine." Corinne nodded attentively. "I understand. I will make sure she takes it on time." I knelt beside the passenger door to speak with Lily. "Call us when you get there, and after your appointment is finished, okay? We should be able to arrange return transportation by then." Lily nodded, her expression betraying her own misgivings about the arrangement. "I will be fine, Dad," she assured me with a bravery that made my heart ache. As Corinne's vehicle pulled away from our house, I felt a deep uneasiness settle in my stomach. Sarah squeezed my hand. "The therapy center has all our contact information. She will be fine." I tried to focus on work that morning but found myself checking my phone repeatedly. Lily's appointment was scheduled for 9, 8:30 a.m., and I expected her call by 9:15 at the latest to let us know they had arrived. When 9:15 came and went with no call, I tried her phone. It went straight to voicemail. Slightly concerned but not yet alarmed, I called the therapy center at 9:40. "Has Lily Mitchell checked in for her appointment?" I asked the receptionist. "No, she has not arrived yet," the receptionist replied. "Her appointment was scheduled to begin 10 minutes ago. Would you like to reschedule?" Now genuinely worried, I tried Lily's phone again, still straight to voicemail. I called Corinne's number. No answer. By 10:30, with no word from either of them, panic had set in. I called the therapy center again, still no sign of them. I tried Corinne's home number and got her voicemail. I even drove to her house, but her husband claimed she was out running errands and he had no way to reach her. By noon, the time for Lily's critical medication, Sarah had left work, and we had called every hospital between our home and the therapy center to check if there had been an accident. We filed a missing persons report with the police, who initially seemed to treat it as a miscommunication rather than an emergency. "She is a vulnerable adult with medical needs," I insisted to the officer taking our report. "She needs medication at specific times. Something is wrong." The afternoon crawled by in an agony of fear and helplessness. We called friends, neighbors, checked social media, and drove the route to the therapy center searching for any sign of Corinne's SUV. Lily's phone continued to go straight to voicemail. At 4:42 p.m., my phone rang with an unfamiliar number. My hands shook as I answered, putting it on speaker for Sarah to hear. "Hello. Is this Mr. Mitchell?" an unfamiliar voice asked. "Yes, who is this?" "My name is Jeff Coleman. I am a clerk at the Super Pump gas station and convenience store in Riverdale. There is a young woman here in a wheelchair who asked me to call you. Says she is your daughter." My heart nearly stopped. Riverdale, that is over 200 miles away. Is she okay? "She seems confused and keeps asking for medicine. Says someone was supposed to come back for her hours ago." Sarah gasped beside me. "We will be there as quickly as possible. Please, can you stay with her? She needs medication immediately. There should be an insulated bag with her." "There is no bag, ma'am. She does not have anything with her except her phone, which is dead." The horrifying reality crashed down on us. Corinne had deliberately taken Lily hundreds of miles from home and abandoned her without her medication or support equipment. This was not a misunderstanding or an emergency. It was a calculated act of cruelty. "Please call 911, I instructed the clerk. "Tell them she is a disabled adult who needs medical attention. We are on our way, but she needs help immediately." As we rushed to our car, the full weight of what had happened became clear. Corinne had not just crossed a line, she had committed a serious crime against our vulnerable daughter, and she would pay for it. The next 5 hours were a blur of frantic coordination and growing fear. I called 911 while Sarah gathered Lily's emergency medication kit that we kept at home. The Riverdale Police Department dispatched officers to the gas station immediately, and a paramedic team followed shortly after. The store clerk, Jeff, stayed on the line with us, describing Lily's worsening condition as we raced to prepare for the long drive. "Her breathing seems labored," Jeff reported, concern evident in his voice. "She says she is feeling numbness in her extremities and getting dizzy." These were the symptoms we feared most, signs that Lily's condition was deteriorating without her medication. Her muscular dystrophy required strict management with timed medications to prevent potentially dangerous complications. A missed dose could trigger a cascade of issues affecting her respiratory function. The paramedics just arrived. Jeff assured us before ending the call. The local hospital contacted us minutes later, confirming they had received Lily and were administering emergency treatment based on the medical information we provided over the phone. As we headed for the highway, I called Detective Ramirez, who had taken our missing persons report earlier. "We found our daughter," I explained, my voice shaking with a mixture of relief and rage. "She was abandoned at a gas station in Riverdale, over 200 miles away, by our HOA president, Patricia Winters." The detective's tone shifted from routine to alarmed. "Abandoned? You are certain about who took her there?" "Absolutely certain. Corinne Winters picked her up this morning for a medical appointment 40 minutes from our home. Instead, she drove her hundreds of miles away, left her without medication or her support equipment, and disappeared. This was deliberate." Detective Ramirez promised to escalate the case immediately. "This is now a criminal investigation. We will need statements from you and your daughter, and we will be seeking Ms. Winters for questioning. This could involve multiple jurisdictions since she crossed county lines." While Sarah drove, I coordinated with the hospital treating Lily. Her doctor from home consulted with the emergency physicians in Riverdale, providing her complete medical history and treatment protocols. The highway patrol in 3 counties were now looking for Corinne's vehicle, and Detective Ramirez had officers en route to Corinne's home. Our neighbor Alina called midway through our journey. "The police are at Corinne's house, but she is not there," she reported. "Her husband seems genuinely confused about the whole situation. But Sarah, something else happened that you should know about." Alina explained that after seeing police at Corinne's house, David from the HOA board had contacted her. He had received a disturbing text message from Corinne earlier that day that he had initially dismissed as odd, but now took on a sinister meaning. He forwarded the message to both Alina and the police. "What did it say?" I asked, putting the call on speaker. Alina's voice was grim as she read the message. "Took care of our problem property today. Gave our special needs burden a special trip. They will learn who really belongs in this neighborhood." My blood ran cold. This was premeditated. This was malicious intent clearly documented. As news of the situation spread through our neighborhood, something unexpected began to happen. Neighbors we barely knew reached out offering help. Some lived near Riverdale and offered accommodation. Others knew medical professionals in the area who could assist with Lily's care. Even residents who had previously supported Corinne's HOA policies expressed outrage at her actions. Multiple disability rights organizations contacted us after hearing about the case through their networks. They offered legal assistance and advocacy support, recognizing the case as a particularly egregious example of discrimination against a disabled person. By the time we reached the Riverdale hospital, Lily had been stabilized but needed monitoring for at least 24 hours. The sight of our daughter in the hospital bed, hooked up to monitors and looking so vulnerable, broke something inside me. She had been used as a weapon in a neighborhood dispute, her health and safety callously disregarded. "She told me she was taking a shortcut," Lily explained weakly when she was able to speak. "Then she stopped at that gas station and said she needed to use the bathroom. She took my phone charger and medication bag with her, saying she would bring them back. But she never came back." Lily had waited for over 5 hours, her condition gradually worsening, before finally asking the store clerk for help. Her phone had died shortly after Corinne abandoned her, leaving her isolated and unable to call for help until she became desperate enough to trust a stranger. As Lily rested, the hospital administrator brought us news. The security cameras at the gas station had captured clear footage of Corinne abandoning Lily. The footage showed Corinne deliberately taking Lily's medication bag and support equipment from the vehicle before driving away, proving beyond any doubt that this was an intentional act designed to cause harm. Detective Ramirez called with an update from our hometown. We have issued a warrant for Patricia Winter's arrest on multiple charges, including kidnapping, endangerment of a vulnerable adult, and assault. Highway patrol in 3 states are now looking for her vehicle. As we settled in for a night at Lily's bedside, the enormity of what had happened began to sink in. What had started as an HOA dispute over accessibility modifications had escalated into a criminal case that spanned multiple jurisdictions. Our fight for our daughter's right to live in her own home had become something much larger, a fight for justice against someone who had weaponized our daughter's disability in the most cruel way imaginable. The following morning brought a flurry of developments. Detective Ramirez called early to inform us that while Corinne had not been located, her credit card had been used at a motel near the state line. Law enforcement agencies across 3 states were now coordinating in the search for her. The detective's voice conveyed the seriousness with which they were treating the case. The district attorney has reviewed the evidence and approved multiple felony charges. This is no longer just about HOA disputes. This is about criminal endangerment of a vulnerable adult. While Lily continued to recover under medical supervision, our story had captured media attention. A local news crew arrived at the hospital requesting an interview, followed by reporters from larger regional stations. We declined most interviews to protect Lily's privacy, but worked with a disability rights advocate to release a brief statement highlighting the broader issues of discrimination and accessibility rights. By mid-afternoon, the hospital room television showed our neighborhood featured on breaking news. Reporters stood in front of our house and the HOA community center, interviewing neighbors about the incident. Corinne always took the rules too far, one neighbor told the cameras. But no one imagined she would do something this horrible. The HOA board called an emergency meeting that was broadcast live on local news. David, now acting as interim president, read a statement formally removing Corinne from her position and expressing the board's shock and dismay at her actions. The board unanimously condemns these reprehensible actions and is fully cooperating with the police investigation, he announced. We are also conducting an internal review of all policies regarding accessibility accommodations to ensure our community is inclusive and compliant with all federal and state laws. As Lily stabilized enough for transport back to our local hospital, more disturbing information emerged about Corinne's history. Former residents of Oakwood Estates began coming forward with accounts of similar targeting, though none as extreme as what had happened to Lily. An elderly couple who had moved out the previous year described being hounded out of the neighborhood after installing a small chair lift on their front steps. A single father shared how Corinne had repeatedly filed complaints about his autistic son playing in their fenced backyard, claiming his vocalizations were disturbing the peace. The police obtained a search warrant for Corinne's home computer and found folders containing surveillance photos, not just of our family, but of several other non-conforming households. Most disturbing was a document titled Neighborhood Improvement Plan that outlined strategies for pressuring undesirable elements to leave voluntarily through aggressive rule enforcement. Security camera footage from various locations painted a clear timeline of Corinne's actions on the day she took Lily. Video from a coffee shop near the therapy center showed Corinne deliberately driving past the facility without stopping. Gas station cameras along the interstate captured her car at multiple points, establishing her deliberate journey far from our hometown. Most damning was footage showing her removing Lily's medication bag from the car before abandoning her. When I viewed this footage with Detective Ramirez, the calculated nature of Karen's actions left me breathless with anger. This was not impulsive, Ramirez confirmed grimly. She planned this. She intended to cause harm. On the third day after the incident, as we were preparing to transport Lily home, we received the call we had been waiting for. Karen had been located and arrested at a relative's vacation home 2 states away. She had attempted to use cash only after the initial motel stay, but a routine traffic stop had identified her vehicle. The media coverage intensified with news of her arrest. Footage showed Karen being led into the county courthouse in handcuffs, her perfect appearance now disheveled, her expression a mixture of defiance and shock. The judge denied bail, citing flight risk and the severity of the charges. As our family was finally reunited in our home, we were surprised by the scene that greeted us. Neighbors had gathered in our front yard with welcome signs. The ramp that had been the source of so much conflict was decorated with flowers and supportive messages. The community that had once seemed divided was now united in support of our family and in condemnation of discrimination. Detective Ramirez updated us on the expanding case against Karen. The investigation has uncovered evidence of ongoing harassment targeting multiple families, with disabled members across several HOA communities where she previously lived. This appears to be a pattern of behavior going back many years. What had begun as one family's struggle against HOA overreach had become a landmark case, highlighting the often invisible discrimination faced by disabled people in residential communities nationwide. 6 months after the incident that changed our lives, we sat in the county courthouse as Karen's trial reached its conclusion. The evidence against her was overwhelming: security footage, text messages, witness testimonies, and her documented history of discriminatory actions. The jury deliberated for less than 3 hours before returning guilty verdicts on all counts, including felony kidnapping, endangerment of a vulnerable adult, and multiple civil rights violations. When the judge delivered a sentence of 12 years in state prison, the courtroom remained solemnly quiet. This was not a moment of celebration,